Guys, you can take your seats. We're going to have an amazing time together. Band, thank you so much. Thank you, guys. It's such a privilege on a Sunday morning to come in and have this time together and worship together. But I just get a chance now to have half an hour with you and just to talk a little bit about what God has got for you, because he's got something for you. Now, here's the confession. I actually brought snacks to preach today. And for all the mums in the house who are the snack packing queens of life, I'm pretty sure, oh, sorry, Ali, you almost took the snack with you. I'm pretty sure that all of you have had these moments where, do you know what, you're just getting a bit hangry and you just need a bit of snack. Well, today's my day. Guys, it's all right, I'm not angry, don't worry. But I just want to share a little bit with you for about 25 minutes, just about something that God has got for us and the journey he's got us on. We as a church, if you're visiting this morning, we're in a series called The Way. It's a really fun series. Dave has preached the last two. I get to preach the next two. And so it's a really fun series that we're in. But I want to ask you this really important, extra holy, serious question. What do you have as your car snack? And it is a serious question because in the UK, we don't really drive much more than like an hour, 2 hours max, because we don't really like it. And we just don't bother. No offense if your family are far away in the UK, you just see them a few less times. But guys, you guys are amazing because you will knock out a 6-hour journey, no questions asked. And so I'm absolutely positive that you guys have some serious car snack skills. Like I think you do. See, my family, we grew up, my dad used to take us a lot of places. My mum hates driving, so her not so much. But we grew up with the most brilliant car snacks. And I could tell, my dad isn't super organized, but I just knew that when he went into that gas station, I knew that he would walk out of that gas station with the keys, the wallet, the receipt for the gas, and some candy. And guys, I was absolutely there for it. There were 6 kids in our family, and so my dad would just get into the driver's seat, and he'd put the candy in the middle of the car, and it would sit there, and he wouldn't open it. And you know when you're a kid, I was like super polite. You never asked my dad for candy because it was like his candy. He hides it. He's like one of those hiding people, hide squirrel, yeah. But the car candy like just sat there, closed, and you basically just had to be a really good kid and wait. Like just wait. And so I don't know whether for you it's like the Swedish fish. Guys, they're so good. Whether it's the Starbucks, whether there's some like chips that you particularly love. But I think all of us have car snacks that we love. One of ours was a classic. Now, this isn't the British version. This is the American version. What we actually call these biscuits in the UK. And a really strong rule in my house was that you could never eat more than 2 biscuits. Or you could never eat more than 2 cookies. And so in my house, it was like if there was biscuits in the snack box or in the car, you could only ever have 2. But I met Dave, and I married Dave. And the 2 biscuit rule disappeared because Dave doesn't believe in the 2 biscuit rule. He doesn't believe in it, but I still hold firmly to it. We've got 4 children. I just want to introduce you to them. They're very cute. Guys, this is like probably the only time in their life they've been still and calm. Okay, so make the most of this photo because you'll soon realize this is not real life. And my little one, our youngest Taya, she's next to me there. She's my mini me. She basically follows my example of being the candy queen in our house. She will ask for candy over and over again. It's like a war of attrition with her. She will not give up until you give her candy. And so she follows my example. Eden, our eldest, the girl, she follows Dave's example. She is all for the meat. She is all for the biltong in South Africa. What's it called? A beef jerky. She's all for that beef jerky, and so is our boy. But kids follow an example. They follow your example, whether it's a 2 biscuit rule or the snacks in the car or the love of candy, whether you are a child yourself, which we all kind of secretly are still, or whether you have children, they're going to follow your example. They're going to follow, you're going to cook your grandma's mac and cheese recipe because it really is the best one. And I don't have a grandma that cooks mac and cheese, and so I just moved over here and stole Rodney Scott's mac and cheese recipe. That's my answer to life. But we've been in the series of The Way, and we're talking about we need a map, the Bible. We need a guide. We need prayer. But this morning I'm going to be talking about we need an example. Because it's one thing to follow Jesus. He's going to tell us what to do in his word. He's going to talk to us in prayer. But Jesus doesn't just tell us what to do. He shows us what to do. He actually takes us on the journey of being like, hey, here's how we change the world. And so I'm going to take us to a story all about lunch. Maybe because I'm hungry, maybe because I'm a foodie. But I'm going to talk all about a story in the Bible where Jesus does an amazing job of serving people and taking us on the adventure. So jump with me if you're taking notes, whether it's in your paper Bible, your digital Bible. We're going to head to John 6. And we're kind of just going to journey through this story from John 6. And it's a brilliant story. And it's the story of how Jesus takes his disciples to feed 5,000 people. It's actually more than 5,000, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So let's just give some context to the story because it's really good to know the context of it. Jesus has just found out days earlier that John the Baptist, his cousin, has been killed. And so he's lost his cousin. He also has actually spent 3 days prior to this, or 2 or 3 days, ministering to people. That means teaching them wisdom, teaching them about what the word says, healing them, sorting their lives out. So Jesus is tired, okay? And I don't know what you come into this morning, but when I'm tired, I veer on the side of hangry. And I veer into that bit where I'm like, give me some food, just give me 2 minutes. And so Jesus actually was going to find 2 minutes with his disciples. And it says this, sometimes after Jesus crossed the shore of Galilee, a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he'd performed by healing the sick. Jesus went out up onto the mountainside and sat down with his disciples. Jesus just needed 2 minutes. He just needed a moment. And then Jesus looked up and he saw a great crowd coming towards him. He said to Philip, where shall we buy some food for these people to eat? But he asked this only to test Philip because he already knew exactly what he was going to do. Now, spoiler alert, lots of us in here might know how the story ends. Jesus actually feeds 5,000 people. But Peter didn't know this at this moment. This was the first time God was going to feed a large mass of people through a miracle. It happens twice in the Bible. He does it 2 times. And this is the first. And I imagine, and I don't know if you think of this, I actually think Jesus has got quite a sense of humor. And I think so often we think of Jesus being this like solemn, melancholy, like deep person. He has those moments, but he has all emotions. And I actually think he probably asked this with a slight smile on his face. Hey, Peter, how are we going to feed all these people? He knows what he's going to do. But he's just asking, hey, Peter, what's your plan? What can you see? Can you see hungry people? Can you see a miracle? Can you see what's going to happen? And he knows what he's going to do. And so Jesus will take us to places of impossibility. That actually you might have a moment in your life right now that you feel like is completely impossible. And you're turning to Jesus and you're like, Jesus, how are we going to do this? I've looked at my finance. This health bill is impossible. I've looked at my marriage. Reconciliation seems impossible. I've looked at how far my family are from Jesus. Salvation seems impossible. I've looked at the credentials for that job interview. I don't think I've got them. This seems impossible. I think there are moments in our life where Jesus takes us to impossible places. Because he wants to not smile and laugh at where you're at. He wants to see what is in you in this moment. What is your default position when something is impossible? What is it when it's overwhelming or it's too big or it's too hard? Because Jesus wants to take us there. And so Philip says this, and this is probably what I would say. Philip answered him and said, it would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for everyone to have one bite. Like, Jesus, if we gave them 2 bites, it's a year's wage. If we gave them a meal, it's 3 years' wage. There's something in this moment that Philip's like, he just looks at the situation completely logically. And it makes sense. That's exactly what I would say. Another disciple, Peter, he says this, here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will this go amongst so many? You see, Peter pulls out a little boy's sandwich. He pulls out a little boy's lunchbox. I think that this little boy was probably right at the front. In another version of this, it says that they scrambled up a hill We all know that small little lads are going to make their way in the mud, fast, at speed, before all the adults. And I think that this little boy was sat near Jesus and heard and just thought, you know what? I'm going to give my sandwiches. Because I think kids sometimes school us a little bit as adults, because we look at our life and think logically. We think about money, we think about provision, we think about, my question would be like, where's the nearest Costco? But that's not what this little boy does. He just gives the tiny thing that he has. He pulls out his lunchbox. And this little boy, all he has is 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Now, I wasn't going to bring fish because that's stinky and I can't fish. But that's all he brings. He just brings the tiny bit that he has to Jesus. And I think Peter in this moment is like, really? Look at it, Jesus. Like, really? That is it. That wouldn't feed the people that are in this room, let alone the 5,000 men and women and children additional to that were on this mountain looking to Jesus for provision. But Jesus takes us to places of impossibility. Jesus said, have the people sit down. There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 were there. But that's just the men. There's women and children too. You see, I believe that every single one of you has got a lunchbox with something to share. Every single one of us. This story actually isn't about the loaves and the fish. It's not about the practical. Actually, it's about when you bring all you have, when you bring who you are to Jesus, he can make miracles happen. And so the little boy just believed in Jesus. He had seen Jesus days before this do incredible things. And he had faith, tiny schoolboy faith to believe, do you know what? There's something so little in me. But when I put it into the hands of Jesus, he can do something amazing. You see, the way that we're walking this week of church is it's the way of serving. The little boy was willing to share. He was willing to serve. There's something in this moment of multiplication. There's something when we just bring the tiny part of who we are and we give it to Jesus. And Jesus takes the disciples and the little boy on this beautiful journey because he takes the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. And he did the same with the fish. There is something beautiful when you bring to Jesus who you are. Maybe you're a really smiley face. Maybe you've got someone who's got the gift of joy. When you go to work, you change the room. When you ask that colleague who's always like a little bit grumpy and writes the shorter emails, how their weekend has been, maybe you're just the light in their life. Maybe your gift is the gift of listening. Maybe in your lunchbox, you've actually got the power to sit down with someone and really take on what their day's been like. And really help them solve their problems by talking and listening. Maybe you're the person who's got the gift of faith. That actually someone's going to come tell you about medical bills and their children's health. And you're going to say, do you know what? I've seen God do it before and he's going to do it again. And you're going to pray for them and you're going to share some scripture with them. And you're going to text them in the week, hey, how are you this week? Hey, how's your girl? You're going to be that person who's got a portion of faith and you think it's tiny and you think it's worthless. And you look at the need in the world and you think it's just a small thing. But Jesus looks at who you are. He looks at your gifting and your strengths. He looks at the tiny thing that you have. You think that you are worth nothing and that you've got nothing to give. And Jesus says, I can do so much with you. I can do so much with what you have to bring to the table. I believe that your loaves and fishes have an incredible power. You see, Jesus takes us to places of impossibility, but he doesn't leave us there to show us what's possible when we serve. You see, I think that little boy and the disciples had front row seats for miracles. They actually had the power and the ability that day to see a miracle. They weren't serving bread and fish, they were serving a miracle. And I believe that when you serve a miracle, when you give to other people, God will always give back to you. Do you know what I think he gave them that day? He gave them faith. Do you know what I think he gave them? I think he gave them confidence. I think this little boy probably didn't have massive confidence. Philip and Andrew certainly had no confidence that this lunchbox was going to do anything. But Jesus said, hey, let's go and do this together. I want to ask you what's in your lunchbox. What have you got to bring? Because I believe the local church, whether this is your church or you're visiting and you go to another church, or this is a whole new thing to you, I believe you've got something to bring. Whether it's welcoming someone on a Sunday morning on our host team, serving a coffee in our cafe team. You see, that's just the lunch. But there's something far deeper when you bring who you are to change and to serve lives. You do way more than feed them or welcome them. You see, our host team, our hospitality team in cafe, it's not about the coffee. It's about people finding a space where they can be prayed for, where they can talk about their week, where we can laugh about our children and their antics, where we can talk about work or business. It's actually not about the coffee. It's about something so much more. What is in your lunchbox? And these are 3 things you need to do to help you take a next step with serving. Here's the first thing. You need to recognize what you've got to give. And that's not arrogance. That's confidence. And God has got something in you to give to other people. If you could just label one thing. If you could pull it out, what would it be? The second thing is you've got to break it. You've got to break your lunchbox. You've got to break a little bit of lunch. You've got to give away something that was yours. The thing about this little boy was he actually was choosing to not have lunch. He actually, when he handed his lunch over to Jesus, he chose that day, well, I'm not having any lunch today. He gave like a little bit of something of his. Maybe you need to start tithing Courageous Church if Courageous Church is your church. Do you know what it is? It's just giving a bit of you and trusting Jesus with it. Maybe you need to start serving. Yeah, it means getting up a few hours earlier on a Sunday. But do you know what? It costs us. It breaks us a little. But there's something really beautiful about it. You see, everyone has a lunchbox. Everyone's got something to give. And I want to give a small lunchbox this morning to someone in our church. Because I have the privilege of praying for you guys in the week, whether you're a guest or you're on serve team or you've been visiting a few weeks. But Ella, this is for you. And I just want to share, Ella, inside there is 2 Starbucks. First of all, I know that Ella loves the Starbucks. But like I said, it's not about the coffee. I really believe, Ella, that you have a gift to talk to people about Jesus. I actually think there is a gift in you to communicate. I think that you can communicate the gospel on an evangelical level with your friends, being an evangelist. But I actually think you're a communicator. I think you're someone who has the ability to sit across from people and tell them about Jesus. And I think that you are going to go on many, many coffees in your life, and you're going to tell many girls about what it means to be a pure, beautiful young woman who loves Jesus. And there is a gift in you, and I believe it in you. And I'm excited to see for you what happens as you open your lunchbox and you bring it to Jesus, because he's going to multiply it. You see, Jesus, when he takes us on this journey, he doesn't want us to do something for him. I think so often when we think about serving in the church or giving something to Jesus, we think it's this transaction where it's like, oh, I'll go and I'll give and then I'll walk away. That's not how it works with the disciples. That's not how it works in this story. It's actually the disciples and the little boy that got to do something with him. Jesus doesn't want you to do something for him. He wants you to do something with him. There's a powerful relational work when we get to do it with Jesus. And this is the miracle. When they'd eaten enough, he said to his disciples, gather up the leftover pieces so that nothing will be lost. So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. It's like Jesus taking one of these and then filling 12 of these after over 10,000 people had eaten. He takes this and he multiplies to this. And he does something when he multiplies it. You see, when we serve people, Jesus serves us. When you give to God, whether it's a Sunday morning being on a serve team, whether it's going out of the way to buy a coffee for a colleague, whether it's serving the children in your street or a single mum or dad in your community, when you serve people, Jesus will serve you. We have a mum in our first service who has been giving to serve team for 8 weeks now. She's a single mum with a son who has additional needs and has petitioned and moved to get to this city where she can get the educational needs she helps for her son. But she has to live in a certain area. And every Sunday we've been praying for her and asking God for the breakthrough for her son that he needs. And do you know what? Every single Sunday, no matter what her week has been like, No matter what it's been like being a mum that week, she turns up and she serves on team. And do you know what we saw this week? We saw God give her the keys to a home to live in the perfect area with a great place for education for her son. And I believe it's because she has given, when it has been tough, she's served people. But do you know what? Jesus serves us. We don't serve people for the miracle. We hand over our lunchbox and we serve people and we just say, Jesus, your will be done. But he will always give it back to us. In Matthew 6, verse 33, it says this, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And all these things which are necessary for the life of the body will be added to you. As you serve people, as you do something for someone, I believe God's going to give it back to you. When the people saw the miracle that he had done, they began saying, this is without doubt the promised prophet who is come into the world. When we serve people, do you know what they see? That the people didn't say, wow, I can see this miracle. This is so kind of the disciples. Aren't they great servers? What a wonderful young man for giving his lunch. They don't actually accredit the people. They actually see who Jesus is. You see, people are watching us and they're watching our example. And what we get to be is we get to be the example of Jesus as we serve people. And so think about, where are some places that you could serve? Is there someone in your family or your community that just needs a little bit of extra help? Is there a colleague that you know, do you know what? They just need something different this week. They need to take a piece of work. They need a good coffee in the morning. Maybe they just need a laugh or a meal. Maybe it's joining the serve team here at Courageous Church, because we have so much fun on a Sunday morning. We have an amazing time together. We've got a great team. There's something beautiful. You have got a next step where you could probably serve. But I want to just bring this into land, because there's one other place in the Bible where Jesus breaks bread. So this is kind of the first time that we see him take a piece of bread and break it. But there's one other place. It's the next place that he breaks bread. And this is when he has a Passover meal. It's like a festival, a celebration meal right before he dies. And Jesus says this, when he had taken the bread and given thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, this is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. And then he's talking about the fact that he lays down his life and he chooses to go to the cross to die for us, that we can be in a relationship with God, that we can have freedom and forgiveness and freedom from our guilt and our shame, and we can have breakthrough on earth now, not just a life of eternity in heaven. It says this, the one who is greatest among you must become like the youngest. You must become what? Like the little boy who shared his lunch. Because there's a young person in both of these stories. Jesus breaks the bread, what? When someone has faith to give a little bit of who they are. And the youngest and the least privileged, the one who is the leader is like a servant. And I am among you as one who serves. Jesus gives us the greatest example of serving. He actually gives us the example of living the way we need to live. And service and giving and serving is part of how we love God and how we love people. And in Courageous Church, we love God, but we also love people. We love you. And if you've come today, I just want to say welcome to Courageous. Come and be served in our church. Come and enjoy worship and a word and community and coffee and a smile for your week. Come and be served. But do you know what? You can come and serve as well. Now, there are a few different characters in this story. We've got Jesus. We've got the disciples, much like our amazing serve team here in Courageous. We've got the little boy. But we do actually have the group of people that are there to be with Jesus. They actually need God. They're actually there not to serve, but to be served. And I just want to tell you this morning, we want to serve you. If you have a need in your life, we'd like to help you meet that need. And if there's something, if you need prayer, please come and find Dave or I, or one of the band members. Go to our Connect point. We want to serve you. Sundays are a morning where we want people scrambling up a hill to get to Jesus. They are a morning where we want people to say, I'm hungry. Because do you know what? I got let down this week. Or I'm hungry because I'm lonely. I'm hungry because I need some friends or I need community. I'm hungry. I want to hear the voice of God. We actually want to meet your needs. We want to give you a little bit of our lunch. We want to give you a bit of what we have in Jesus, the bread of life that we have in Jesus. And so I want to ask this morning if there's anyone that is actually, you feel like you're scrambling up a hill to meet Jesus for the first time. And maybe you're like, do you know what? I don't actually know this Jesus you're talking about. I just know that my friend brought me, or I saw you online, or I've heard about you, and I actually want to get close to Jesus. I'm going to pray a prayer, and I'd like you to join me in praying that prayer. You don't have to pray it out loud. You can just like pray it in your head. But what it is it gives you chance to say, Jesus, I want to know you. It's almost like you're on that hill and Jesus is sat there ready and he's got some food in front of him, and you're going to say, do you know what? I want to know what this is about. And so I'm going to pray that prayer. If you could just close your eyes and bow your heads. We do this because we want to give the people that are praying just a little bit of space, and we just want to help you focus. And so I'm going to pray a prayer. And what I would love you to do is I would love you to pray this in your head with me. And then at the end of today, our Connect team are going to connect with you and give you a Bible and talk to you about what it really means now to know this Jesus. And so pray this with me. Lord, thank you that I can see you. As I've kind of climbed the mountain of life, I'm taken to this moment of impossibility or this moment of relationship with you. And Jesus, I acknowledge that you're real, and I want to be in relationship with you, and I want to know you more. And so Jesus, I confess that I'm a sinner. I've got things wrong. Maybe there are areas of need in my life, or I need a relationship with you, but also I acknowledge that being in relationship with you means eternal life. And it means a relationship where, Jesus, you can change my life today, not just for eternity. And so, Father, I'm sorry for everything I've done wrong. I come to acknowledge you today and start a relationship with you. In Jesus' name, amen.